Dear students, let us begin with the third part of the lesson on India and the post-Uruguay round developments, in which we will discuss about reasons for the failure of the Doha round. Reasons for the failure of the Doha round. The Doha round of trade negotiations was launched in 2001, but after 2 decades there is now little hope that it will succeed. If the WTO is to be revived, it is important to understand why the Doha round has failed. The first warning signs appeared at the WTO Ministerial Conference held in Cancun in 2003, with an important realignment taking place in the WTO just before the meeting. This was the formation of the G20, a coalition of developing countries pressing for ambitious agricultural reforms in developed countries and sufficient flexibility for developing countries. The G20 has Brazil, India, South Africa, Thailand, Nigeria and China accounting for 60% of the global population, 70% of farmers and 26% of the world's agricultural exports. This gives the grouping enormous opportunity in negotiations. When the United States and EU sought to push for a deal with enormously weak outcomes in agriculture, but launched negotiations on the Singapore issues, the G20 put its foot down and the conference failed. While it is easy to blame the G20 for blocking a positive outcome, such an assessment would be wrong because the Doha mandate called for positive outcomes in agriculture, which the developed countries failed to deliver. Agriculture has always been a problem in WTO negotiations, even when WTO members tried to conclude the Doha round in July 2008. The efforts undertaken by the then WTO Director General Pascal Lamy were criticized by journalist Paul Bluestein for the lack of agreement on the special safeguard mechanism deal. Regarding the issue of SSM in agriculture, Bluestein says that powerful US farm and industrial groups and leading members of the United States Congress were profoundly dissatisfied with the deal on offer. Lamy first tried to achieve consensus with the 7 leading WTO members, the US, EU, Brazil, India, China, Japan and Australia, before bringing in the wider WTO membership. It created problems for African countries who said they were entirely unrepresented in this group. The WTO Ministerial Conference in Bali in 2013 was perhaps the last opportunity to save the Doha round. A multilateral agreement on trade facilitation was reached. The trade facilitation agreement fulfills not only the fundamental objective of cutting down red tape and diminishing the cost of trading, but it also reflects in full the SNDT applicable for developing and least developed countries. Landmark provisions in the agreement allow for flexibility in the scheduling and the sequencing of implementation and linking commitments to acquired capacity resulting from technical assistance. But agriculture continued to be a sticking point in Bali as well. India had drawn attention to its unique problem with regard to public stock holding, which in the Uruguay round was fixed at subsidies. Difference between administered price and market price being no more than 10% of the value of production of the commodity. India, supported by the G33 coalition of countries, wanted public stock holding to be moved to the green box. The developed countries led by the US opposed this. In the end, the compromise was that there would be a clause: India and others who avail of public stock holding will not be dragged to dispute settlement until a permanent solution is found. Let us summarize what we have discussed so far in this lesson. In all negotiations, the developed countries were in violation of the spirit of the Doha mandate on agriculture. The Doha development round became another mercantilist round of concessions being exchanged between the developed and the developing countries. India has played a pivotal role in the WTO's Doha development agenda, championing the interests of developing nations. The future of the Doha rounds remains uncertain, but they have highlighted the importance of equitable global trade rules and development-oriented trade policies. The power shift from the global north to the south and the difficulty of reaching a consensus among 164 countries were the primary reasons for the failure of the Doha round. The rise of emerging economies like India and China has shifted the dynamics, making negotiations more complex but also reflecting a more multipolar world. The global north seems to be acknowledging the need for development considerations, frequently imposes more stringent intellectual property protections and market access demands, disadvantaging the global south in international trade negotiations. If the impasse over the Doha round was not debilitating enough for the WTO, the appellate body started facing criticism from the most powerful player in the WTO, the United States. The US felt that the appellate body had indulged in judicial overreach and had ruled adversely on issues dear to the United States. For instance, the question of zeroing in the calculation of anti-dumping duties. The United States should have engaged in negotiations with other WTO members. Instead, in a display of unilateralism, the United States systematically blocked consensus on the appointment of fresh appellate body judges, rendering it dysfunctional. I hope you understood about India and the post-Uruguay round developments. We have concluded our lesson. Thank you.